What's going on YouTube? AlphonZeus of Team Gradelock here with another episode of Unlocking Week, episode 72. We're going to start things off with the local results for both Cardfight Vanguard and feature card Buddyfight at Game On in Clifton this past Saturday. We had quite the run, especially with the launch of Fighters Collection 2014 Extra Booster. And with feature card Buddyfight, we see Legend will take a little bit of an increase in the amount of players using it this time around. And then we're going to be looking through the eyes of at least one Mr. Joe Burns, one of the members of Team Gradelock, who actually went all the way out to Fort Worth, Texas to participate in both Cardfight Vanguard and Feature Card Buddyfight tournaments, and performing pretty well. I actually got some details from him over the past weekend, just seeing how he performed, and I'm not going to give any spoiler just yet. I'll leave the suspense up until that point. And so after going through all the results from this weekend, we're going to be going into the video content you'll be expecting from this week, especially with maybe a box opening of Way Shorts, as well as a feature card Buddyfight match that I'll put up as well. And finally, we will conclude the episode with Ride 199, or at least in the G Series, episode 3, with the episode breakdown. So let's start off with the local results. I don't know what happened in particular this past Friday at Game On. If there was the usual Cardfight Vanguard tag team tournaments, or if there was another tournament that took place. But of course, if you were there, feel free to comment down below and provide the results as to how many people entered, who topped, and with what. Now let's move on to the main event on Saturday, starting off with the Vanguard tournament. I entered in with, of course, the Dimensional Robos of Dimension Police, or how I like to call them, D-Robo, D-Popo. And I was running a Grade 3 lineup that was more in line with Daikaiser, thanks to Fighters Collection 2014, rather than Daikaiser Daiusha. I was running 4 Break Rides, 2 Great Daikaisers, and 3 Shadow Kaisers. My 10th unit was actually Reverse Daiusha, because I really did like that limit break to minus 10k on the opponent's Vanguard. It's very unique, according with at least for Dimension Police. Now, moving on into the first match, I went off against Neri, and she was running the Beast IDs of Nova Grappler. I ended up winning both games because both times I managed to cross break ride and utilize that third drive check. That was pretty key in order to popping the perfect guard that she had. She really didn't have enough cards to guard in hand, and I was swinging with, Glory Maker or even Goyusha for a 28k to 33k Vanguard swing. And even if you drop a perfect guard, if I pop that, then that means you have to provide at least 2 10k shields if you want to make it a 1 to pass. Or in the case of the 33 with Glory Maker, it ends up becoming, alright, I have to leave it at that. I can't just drop like 5 cards from my hand just for this one attack. But I guess with something that's swinging with a critical, you might as well will be. And I managed to defeat her to get the first win. Round 2, I went up against Josh, and he was running the Kagero Rebirth with the Draconic Overlord Break Ride. First game, he was Gradelock at 2. I noticed it because I managed to use Die Barret a bit early, because I was swinging in with Die Fight to the 10k vanilla for D-Robos, and I had Goyusha behind him. And he had a 9k, or at least a 7k Vanguard. I was going, I went first. So I used Die Barret's skill to get that extra pressure to see if I can retire the starter, and he ended up dropping 2 10k shields, making it a no-pass situation. And so I was like, alright, this guy probably doesn't have the Grade 3. When he got the Searcher out, he actually ended up getting Nobel instead. That was his tech card. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to get it, so I got game 1. And then game 2, I was able to utilize Great Daikaiser and the Break Rides. Oh, man. Using Break Ride over Break Ride even is still pretty darn good, because I can just Break Ride again next turn, and therefore it's like, oh god, do I want to keep dropping all this hand for it, or do I just let the attack go through and hope I get a heal shrinker? And so I managed to go 2-0. Next, I went up against CK, and he was running Omega Glendios of Link Joker. Going up against him, I won game 1 because of just having the pressure of the Vanguard on him, and unfortunately he was Gradelocked as well at 0 for a turn. And then next in game 2, I ended up getting Gradelocked a little bit, and so we ended up going to game 3. Then in that game, it was pretty much decisive. We were getting triggers, or especially on my end, because I felt bad every time after I rolled my Grade 3, I got at least a trigger, whether it was a crit draw or heal, on every drive check. It was getting really silly, and it ended up being a bit too much for him, because that's a lot of 5Ks added to the attacks. Able to drop a lot of hand for that, or just take damage. Well, it was a very intense game, but I actually managed to defeat Glendios. And so I think that was only 2 times I managed to defeat Glendios, and both times there was at least one game where the Glendios player got Gradelocked, the first time being Burns. And then I moved on to round 4, where I faced off against Joe from Team Dark Matter, and he was running Blink Joker, but Chaos Breaker Dragon 12 crits. Game 1 was interesting because I managed to sack with, Great Die Kaiser. It's like, alright, I'll have to take it. Game 2, I went first, but every time Joe made a ride, so grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, he had a crit trigger on each drive check. And going to 2 damage, then going to 4 damage. That was Gradelock too, so it was even more of a handicap for me. Grade 3 when he rode. First check, no trigger. Second check, crit trigger. And I was just like, yeah, I don't see any heals going off at all. it lasted less than 2 minutes really, so I can't do much. Then round 3, or at least game 3 of the 4th round. It was even crazier. Joe was still at 2 damage, and I managed to break ride, or cross break ride in that sense. So he ended up going, alright, no guard. I end up double critting, which means that Die Kaiser was swinging for 4 damage, and he wasn't able to get a heal trigger at all in any of those 4 damage checks. And the lucky part was I actually put myself to 5 damage because just in case he gets a heal trigger on the 5th damage, he can't heal. And he had a draw trigger on one of his damage checks, so that would have made it even harder for my rear guards to even go at it. So I ended up going 4-0 undefeated with Great Die Kaiser, and it was crazy because I haven't really done that well at the Vanguard tournaments in quite some time. I haven't topped in at least the past month or so, but hey, I won even though that 3 out of the 4 rounds my opponent was Gradelock, and I can't really do much about that because it's the Vanguard Casino. Um, Moving on to the price support, at least people are saving their packs for next week, but I knew that hey, I needed that 3rd grade Die Kaiser, and I was like, give me Fire's Collection, I'll take 5 packs, don't worry. We ended up splitting. The 4 people that managed to top were myself with the Robos of Dimension Police, Joe with CBD Link Joker, and then we had CK with Glendio's Link Joker, and the 4th one was actually Nicole, the same girl who traded me the 2nd Great Die Kaiser with duos of Bermuda Triangle. So 2 Link Jokers, a Dimension Police, and a Bermuda Triangle took top 4 spots at the local. So pretty good turnout. Glad to see half of that being Team Gradelock and Team Dark Matter representing as well, with a brand new person in the top 4 as well. So pretty much congrats to all the top players there. Really good turnout. I think we had 17 people, which was pretty good. I thought we were going to go into a playoffs for top 8, but looks like we ended up going to top 4. Now, according to what happened in Buddyfight, I wasn't able to enter the tournament because I was thinking, alright, I either need to practice a whole lot more with Legend World, or I just try out a new build altogether and go for the heroes and probably sink all my money into making that build work. Because I really do like Excalibur. I really, really do. I think what I've seen in Future Card Buddyfight, there are I think 6 or 7 people that entered. There were a few new people as well, including this kid who was with his family, which was a pretty big surprise. You usually don't see like an entire family like hanging out at the local. The top 2 people that ended up going were both Eric and Ian. Eric taking first and Ian taking second. They were both riding Jackknife Gold Ritter of Dragon Ball. So yeah, looks like to his influence, and especially a lot of people are seeing how crazy Gold Ritter can be, and it really shone through. And I gotta say, it's gonna be a tough one to beat, but at least if I go Legend World Heroes, I have Excalibur, and of course I'll have to avoid just him popping my weapon. Of course, that's why you gotta have those breathing guards ready at the helm to just make sure, hey, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get this because there's no other way you can play a card after that. So tournament wise, it was a pretty good turnout. We actually ended up doing a lot of recording content for it. We tried to do a lot more on Wednesdays, Thursdays, so that Saturday won't be as much of a heavy load. But of course, Saturdays is always nice to do at least one thing. Now moving on to the local results, a few of the members of, well, actually one of the members of Team Gradelock, Joe Burns, he actually traveled all the way out to Fort Worth, Texas. CK and Henry were unable to go to Texas because of their plane tickets. I'm not sure what happened. It was the last minute. They weren't able to get a deal, so unfortunately they weren't able to go. So with Burns over and Arturo over in Fort Worth, Burns entered the Cardfight Vanguard tournament there. So in the Bushiroad Championship World Qualifiers, we ended up having, I think, 359 people enter, which is a pretty good turnout for Texas, especially for any qualifier region. He ended up entering with the duos of Bermuda Triangle. If you haven't noticed, that was actually the same deck that he used in the Cardfight Vanguard match time that we had this past week. I'll provide an annotation somewhere around here. Now, moving into his round by round analysis, I actually have a complete list of what he managed to do in terms of, hey, round breakdown, how he did. We had round 1, he went up against Royal Paladin Sanctuary, as in Sanctuary Guard Dragon. He won that round. Round 2, he ended up going against Minerva of Genesis, so he won against that. Round 3, he went up against Aquaforce, a Maelstrom reverse deck, won that. Round 4, he faced off against the Echo of Nemesis Dark Irregular deck. He won. Round 5, he faced off against Rebirth with his Gonic Overlord Break, right? He lost that round. So round 6, he went up against Drag Ruler and won. Round 7, Spike Brothers and won. And finally, round 8, he faced off against a second Aquaforce Maelstrom Reverse and won that as well. Cutting into top 8, he actually managed to place 3rd after the cut. So really awesome to see. He was actually the first Team Gradelock member in a singles tournament format to make it to the playoffs for the top 8, as a couple of our members really kind of left out in the blue. I know Henry, he went 8-1 2 tournaments in a row and he wasn't able to top. So it's glad to see that someone break the curse, and how Alex likes to go to hashtag the dream is real. Now, moving into the top 8 playoff, he went up against Nova Grappler Brawl Cougars. He won. And then the top 4, he faced off against Novell of Kagero. He lost that. And so he ended up playing a 3rd place match against Glendios, and he won, securing a 3rd place finish. So he was 3rd place after the top cut and a 3rd place finish in the entire Cardfight Vanguard tournament. Everybody at Team Gradelock was so happy and proud for him that he made it that far, and he now has his ticket for the national championship for Bushiroad World Championship qualifiers in Cardfight Vanguard later on this year. So we're all cheering on for him. We're really happy for him. Now, about all the rounds that he played, he told me at least one of was his best plays that happened in round 3 against an Aquaforce Maelstrom reverse deck. Now, early on, he was pushed to 4 damage. He ended up break riding, and he had to deal 4 damage, and pretty much, wow, he pushed him to 5 damage on a break ride turn because the opponent only had 4 cards in hand, so he was taking a lot. And after that turn even concluded, he had nothing left in hand to go with. So he ended up having a very weak attack, in which Burns was more than happy to just overguard and make sure no shenanigans happened, and actually took it. And what he said next was actually what he named his deck, and he named his deck Henry's Mom, because of course he wanted the top with Henry's mom. I guess it was kind of a spiritual successor, since Henry was kind of like, unlucky to even get out of, the regular into the top 8 cut playoffs, and it was kind of sad, but at least maybe Burns topped with Henry's mom, so technically maybe Henry could top as well, but with all that aside, it was pretty good. We even sent Burns a video after he managed to make it to the playoffs, saying, "Hey, we're proud of you, man," holding up, Team Gradelock mat and stuff like that. Now, moving into the Future Card Buddyfight tournament, who's running Sager of Ancient World. So he told me that there were about, I think, a few hundred people that entered as well. There were 5 rounds, so with a cut to top 8, he was running for Seeger. The first round, he went up against Knights of the Round Table of Legend Worlds. Of course, King Arthur Excalibur, he won against that. Round 2, he went up against the Katana World Ninjas. He won against that. Round 3, he went up against Gold Ritter of Dragon World. He lost that round. And then round 4, he went up against another Knights of the Round Table of Legend World and won that round. Round 5, he ended up going up against Archero and lost that round. So he did a pretty good performance, making it all the way to round 5 before being knocked out by Arturo. And hey, it was a good showing by him. He managed to top in Cardfight Vanguard, and he had a very good showing in Future Card Buddyfight, showing how, this guy, he's been doing pretty well, and we're glad to see more people from Team Gradelock that are topping at these events, and really just showing that, hey, we can perform pretty well, and we're very proud of our members. I know I am. I'm very proud of all the efforts that my members have done, whether it was going in competitively or helping out with the YouTube channel. And Vern's highlight play of that whole Future Card Buddyfight tournament, it said that he had 2 spell nullifiers in his hand with an Impact and Dragon Outlaw. He ended up top decking for Bolka to get to the 8 gauge, and he was at 5 damage. He grailed the first attack, nullified it, and killed the monster. Then he attacked him again, used another Holy Grail, but then nullified and then used the Impact for gain. And that was quite the play, especially utilizing those spell nullifiers. New promos in Future Card Buddyfight that included both a Grade 3 Searcher for a Dragon Lord, if I may say, as well. Dear God, Seeger is going to be looking pretty mighty right now, because with spell nullifiers, searchers, and draw power, engage power, oh dear God, Seeger is becoming a really big bad boss in the world of Cardfight Vanguard. And even though that Gold Ritter can trump the first 2 forms of Seeger, you go into Spartan and everything just starts going crazy, because that power is way too great. They'll have to utilize Drago energies to even try it, and I'm pretty sure that Spartan would have another soul in hand, because you really don't want to have Spartan lose by just being returned to the hand or even killed, because of course that lifelink lose, or in Japan lifelink death, which seems very scary. Now, moving on to the video content for this week, we have at least a box opening for you. I know I said this last week, but I'll be doing a double box opening for Persona of Wei Schwartz. This is pretty much the only Wei Schwartz, I guess, that I will be going heavy into it, because I don't know, even though that I've only played Persona 4 Arena and Ultimax, I do want to try out the game a bit more. I might end up getting Q Shadow of the Labyrinth for the 3DS when it does come out. That collector's edition really looks mighty fine. I gotta admit, it really does. And after that, I should be able to put up for you a Future Card Buddyfight match this time around, and I'll try to do more of those funny little edits. I gotta admit, I really chuckled a bit when I edited that cameo from SpongeBob SquarePants. Say, "You drew a double cred, didn't you, Ian?" And so you should expect that video to come up either Thursday or Friday. I'm going to school. I'm back in classes right now, so of course, it's going to be a while for me to edit, but I'll do my best to upload at least one other video besides the Unlocks the Week episode every week from now on. And now let's top off the video with the latest Cardfight Vanguard episode breakdown of Ride 199 or G Turn 3, entitled Kouji Ibuki. Now, if you don't want to get spoiled on the episode or not interested, feel free to pause or close the video. You can go watch the episode if you want, come back right here so we can talk about it. But if not, you can feel free to close out and be on your merry way. So Ride 199 or G Turn 3, Kouji Ibuki. We get to see at least a few more of the core Vanguard tactics and choices that we've seen in the past 4 seasons. We also get to see the introduction of a brand new character. We see him teased a little bit, of course, according to the title. We see Kouji Ibuki, and this may be the foil to the protagonist that we've seen. Except in a way that Aichi was such a foil to Kai and vice versa, Ibuki can be quite the same type of foil to Chrono. Now, of course, they kind of using the same clans as Rock and the Kagero. Seeing that Perdition Dragon stand up and the in there, this guy has to be related to Kai in some way. Either that or he was just a big fan of him growing up, because of course this is a couple of years into the future. So let's start off with the screenshots. Now I gotta admit, this opening sequence looked pretty interesting to me, because having these 2 cards spin around like tops and then slap each other and then keep on spinning was kind of like a heart attack for me, because oh man, those cards might have been worth so much value and they probably went down just because of those shenanigans. And so with this introduction of this potential badass character like Kai Tosuke was all the way back then, we get to see what Chrono has been up to after all this time. Now I wonder, how far has he taken this cardfight career? Well, as Kamui pointed out, very seriously, as for the past 2 weeks, ever since he's picked up his Spica, he just went all out and just making quests and doing that and showing up to the card shop every day for the past 2 weeks. That sentence alone really showed me how much dedication this guy actually had to this card game, and makes me wonder what in the world is he doing with his schoolwork. So I guess for the past 2 weeks, it's summed up in this little compilation of Chrono going up against Trinity Dragon, or at least Netotado, and just saying, oh, I'm going to complete this quest before you. And it seems like Chrono's been performing pretty well for a guy that's just getting right into Cardfight Vanguard. And the scene upcoming next, looking at this dog that's apparently guarding a toy poodle. Really? Somebody would just leave it right there in a guard dog and just have people say, oh, this guard dog looks like he's going to bite your leg off, but hey, I'll give you more points so you can level up if you get that card for me. And of course, Trinity Dragon will go for it. And what they do, they threw a bone at it, and then it ended up leading them on a chase that seems to be very dangerous. I find it very, very hard for them to have a user-generated quest that can probably not kill or injure someone. And this scene in particular made me laugh so hard because really, we're gonna have a dog biting Tado's butt, and oh my Jesus! And that of course that icon looks a little bit familiar, but still, this is not the type of normal thing that I would see on Cardfight Vanguard. Now, as a former Oracle think tank player, I feel very, very offended in a way because Tado, you're not your typical Oracle think tank player because you're kind of going in brash, and the way that you even present yourself, that's kind of not OTT-ish. But of course, what am I saying? Usually a clan would welcome everybody, especially people that don't really fit the mold of what a particular player may be like for a particular clan. It's always nice to have some diversity. It's just that, I would hope that maybe the OTT Corporation probably help you out a little bit, especially with their playstyle, because you can't really just go in all like that. You can't play OTT like you play Kagero or like you play Royals. It's a pretty different playstyle, although of course you're always going to be relying on those crits and heals and draws sometimes. So seeing what happens next is when Chrono goes into the shop, he ends up getting a user generated quest saying, hey, I want to actually test out this new deck. So what we see next is that, oh, immediately accept, but we don't see Trinity Dragon, we don't see that team at all. He just moves on to what seems like to be a movie theater for Cardfight Vanguard. I swear, I feel like I've been born a little bit in the wrong period, but I still feel happy for my 90s roots. But this whole theater is just showing how big Cardfight Vanguard has become and how crazy the whole world is going over in this. And so to move the episode breakdown along, we see Chrono going over to the supposed movie theater to wait for the supposed quest giver. But of course, we get to see a little bit of hilarity before that moment comes along. We get to see a cameo appearance from the supposed Vanguard mascot, Vanguardo. And I didn't expect to see an icon or a mascot for Cardfight Vanguard. Usually I thought that would be one of the main units like Blast the Blade or the character Aichi. And I was kind of chuckling through this because it's kind of a weird meeting place to have, but I got a feeling those two eyes are watching you somehow. And soon enough we get to see Chrono being greeted by the supposed Kai badass of the G series, Kouji Ibuki. Of course he didn't tell him his name yet, but it's in the title after all. So they take him through a tour, I guess, of this supposed Vanguard theater, and like a celebrity would be, they end up bypassing the line, and next thing you know, they just say, oh, is this what it feels like to be a Vanguard celebrity or something? Because that would be pretty cool. This whole system involving, you know, the Fika and the Friendly Fighters Association. Oh my god. That just screams out, wow, you can make Vanguard a literal career and it can work. So when they take him to the room or the arena, we get to see a little bit of a throwback. Because honestly, I played fighting games quite a bit back then. Just seeing this scene that's coming up right now is quite reminiscent. Now starting off with the arena, this looks totally like the training room for the Marvel vs. Capcom series, or even Street Fighter from that sense. Going into what looks like to be an IMAX sized theater to play Cardfight Vanguard is only grounds for an awesome match to record. And then we get to the arena selection where we get to see Ibuki choose Dragon Empire. If you don't know what that flag is, that flag actually represents that, which, you know, encompasses Kagero, Narukami, Murakumo, as well as Nubatama. So it was nice to finally see a flag from one of the nations being represented. And then they changed the stage. They literally make this like the floor is lava. But of course, they switch it off into another more comfortable fighting arena. And through all this, he then drops the name Gias. So of course Chrono would be a little bit thrown off by this new acronym. But before that, we get to see this cool move where the decks become virtualized and you see them in the hand. And then he drops it as Grand Image Advanced System, in which that you literally see your units, and of course you pretty much can almost touch them, but of course it just goes through them like a hologram. And so we get to see this epic card fight take place, as we actually get to see a little bit more of the board, as you know, they ride and call and attack and just go through all this action. And of course when you're in that environment, it feels so real, because this Gias just makes it all happen. You don't even have to imagine it anymore, because you are almost feeling it. Of course it would be really bad to feel that type of pain in combat, even when you're playing something like Vanguard, because wow, it's taken a long step, because you know when Kai said imagine it, you don't have to imagine it anymore. So as we get further into the card fight, we see Ibuki start to really use some, I guess, advanced tactics, or tactics that a lot of people, especially beginners like Chrono, wouldn't really pick up early on. Like Chrono, of course we already made all the mistakes before, where we actually guarded early. Now it can help kind of, but it would hurt us in the long run, as those cards could have helped us to guard attacks and not take those late game damages, which can be really, I guess, time consuming in terms of, okay, I gotta check my damage zone, I gotta check your damage zone, I gotta check my drop zone, calculate what triggers I have in my hand, what triggers that I knew my opponent went through, and just hope for the best. Now we get to see some of those tactics actually come to life in here, when of course Ibuki points out to Chrono that, oh, you guard early, you're a beginner. And then when Ibuki would even drop the fact that, why would you attack with this other column? Well, it seems that Ibuki doesn't want to give you limit break, or another type of strategy where you don't want to give that opponent an extra damage in order for them to use the counter blast, to use that skill that could potentially swing the game and the momentum in your favor. So bringing up both of these tactics, especially how, since playing Vanguard for a while, you really learn how to pick up on it, it's just, you know, it's just cool to actually see that come to fruition, at least in the anime. And then when Chrono tries to go in with Chrono Jet Dragon, of course Ibuki would then take on a little bit more of a sinister role, as how Kai did in the first episode with Aichi, when he completely did kind of a heel turn on him, or you know, turn like a bad guy move by just, you know, calling him out or just making him feel bad. And the anime, at least the artists and the producers there, they really showed how to make this Ibuki guy a real cold and almost villain-like character. From starting to just shrug off such an attack offensive from Chrono, Ibuki would just go, oh, is that all? And that just begins the mind games that he plays on Chrono, literally trying to get in his head, trying to make him feel alone, especially from bringing back such an offensive with an even greater offensive with his Legion skill, just retiring his entire field, leaving Chrono Jet Dragon completely alone. And so what does Chrono do about this? He would go into Stride Generation one more time. But the thing is, when he would perform Stride Generation, you get to see the strided unit all of a sudden seem to escape from a portal into the real world. And kids can see it, but apparently adults can't. And somehow this would almost break the stadium, or you know, just do something bad to the IMAX theater that seemed like it would collapse on them, therefore shutting down. The game would probably end up in a draw, because the thing is, when all of a sudden Chrono would stride, okay, that means that after Chrono Jet Dragon attacked and he guarded, that means he would just stride. Does that mean that Chrono actually did the skill of Chrono Jet by counter blasting 4 and just revealing a 0, 1, 2, and 3 unit to gain an extra turn? That's what I thought what could have happened, because I remember Gear Chronicle having that unit being able to do such an amazing skill. Unless I am mistaken, then of course you can comment down below with that. But the thing is, Ibuki doesn't even give him his name, because he already knows that Chrono has a long journey ahead of him in terms of being the best card fighter that we've seen in quite some time, especially since the 2 years after the conclusion of Season 4. And seeing how Chrono would rage. He would just scream out at the end of the episode over a bridge, the same bridge that he passed by Aichi, that he would just be so frustrated with him that even though he's accomplished quite a bit in 2 weeks, he still has so much more of a mountain to climb, especially when he wants to reach that peak where he faces off against Ibuki one more time and in hopes of actually defeating him. But of course, this is the journey of a new character in an established anime. You just start from the bottom, you work your way up, you find yourself some friends, you find yourself some rivals, and then you find yourself your main person that you want to knock off and beat in a fair card fight, card game, or whatever you want to call it. And this kind of sets it up that, okay, in addition to being a better card fighter, now he's just training in order to see if he can just outplay or just beat Ibuki in a card game. And with Cardfight Vanguard, there's a lot of shenanigans that can take place. It all depends on how Chrono is willing to adapt and just change his game plan, especially when you see triggers come into the effect, which is pretty much the first of two random elements outside of Gradelock that can happen when you are in a card fight game. And thus we end the episode breakdown here. I guess a lot of emotions really can run through when watching this episode and seeing, of course, I look forward to seeing Chrono climbing this mountain and bringing a Dark Zone clan into the light and facing off against United Sanctuary and the Dragon Empire. So I have all hopes of Chrono into just overcoming any obstacle that takes place so far, and technically he hasn't lost yet with one unfinished fight. So that's it for the Cardfight Vanguard episode breakdown. I hope that you enjoyed watching at least the screenshots I provided as well as my commentary. I hope that it's been tolerable. But that'll be it for this week's Team Gradelock episode, Unlocking the Week. My name is AlphonZeus. I hope that you've enjoyed this week that I've unlocked for you, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.